So let's talk about the pronunciation of the Quran, right? So Asharis say when you pronounce the Quran, right, words in it, that pronunciation is created, right? So like if I say, I don't know, let's say I recite a verse in the Quran, obviously the words that are coming out of my mouth, those words are created, right? That's the Ashari belief. And so the Salaf, actually, a lot of Hanbalis used to say that if you believe that, then you're a kafir. Right? And so the Salafis, I think they follow them in that. So let's see if any major scholars did hold that belief outside the Asharis. And so according to this, it says that Bukhari did hold that belief. So let's look at that. And if we could prove that Bukhari held that, then why do the Salafis always say, oh yeah, we follow all the Salaf, Bukhari, that's one of our favorite scholars. I mean, they can't even use his book anymore if this is true, because then he's a kafir, right? So let's analyze it. And he wrote a book called Khalq Afal Al-Ibad, right? I read the book. It's pretty short. As for what the two parties from the school of Ahmed have claimed as proof, each for his own position, much of what they relate to, from him is not established as authentic, right? And that's actually in his book of Bukhari. He says that, actually, I don't know if he's right or wrong about this, but he says that the position of Ahmed on the pronunciation of the Quran is actually reported. The reports that the Hanbalis follow is inauthentic, right? That's what he's saying. Ibn as-Subki, right, this isn't from the book of Bukhari, this statement here, right, because Subki comes a lot later, said that what was authentically related from Ahmed is that he declared it as an innovation, not as you're a kafir, right? Al-Kharabisi's statement that the one's pronunciation of the Quran was created, right? He was the first guy to say that, and according to the Salafis, it makes you a kafir, but Subki and Bukhari say that it only makes you it's only an innovation. It doesn't make you a kafir, right? Anyways, what reconciles the two views reported from Ahmed is that some may have given his words the most severe meaning possible, namely the sense of bid'ah mukafira, or innovation that constitutes disbelief. Note that it was also Al-Kharabisi's view that whoever contradicts his statement that one's pronunciation of the Quran created commits disbelief, and so Ahmed did not contradict it, but declared it an innovation instead, right? Such doctrines are largely a reaction explained by the charged climate prevalent in Ahmed's time, right? It was a lot of chaos. Anyways, let's get to the point to what Bukhari believed. The Hanbalis sometimes went too far in their reaction, as demonstrated by the boycott of Bukhari, right? Read by a major Hanbali scholar, Amir al-Mu'mineen fi al-Hadith, Muhammad ibn Yahya al-Duhli, right? Pretty sure he's a Hanbali. So, if this is what Salafis do, right? There's a lot of scholars like Tirmidhi, Tabari, and Bukhari that the Hanbalis didn't like these scholars, right? But the Salafis say, oh, we accept them. Like, all right, but they had a conflict with, and you claim to Hanbali, you claim to be Athari, Ahl al-Hadith. Well, your scholars of that time didn't agree with these guys, and they hated them. So I don't know why you're pretending that you're all part of the same sect after they didn't like these people, right? At least be honest about it. But they pretend like it was all good between them. I have made Imam Ahmad an imam in all that stands between me and my Lord. Ad-Duhli's boycott led Bukhari's ultimate expulsion from Naish Sabur, right? That's like the region, for saying something that aroused their suspicion that he was a Jahmi. Ibn Subki relates the incident and elaborates it. Many sheikhs mentioned to me that when Bukhari came to Naish Sabur and was attended by the throngs of people, some of his sheikhs began to feel jealous of him, said it to the authorities in Hadith. Muhammad ibn Ismail, pretty sure that's Bukhari, right? The pronunciation of the Quran is created, so investigate him. When the people gathered, one man got up and asked, "Oh, Abu Abdullah, what do you say about pronunciating the Quran? Is it created or uncreated?" He ignored him, right? Because that's usually Ahmed doesn't like to say new things, so he just leaves things alone instead. So the man repeated the question, so he ignored him again, so he repeated again. And At which point Bukhari turned to him and said, the Quran is Allah's speech and it is uncreated. The actions of servants are created, and investigating someone is an innovation, right? Meaning that, the Quran says not to be suspicious of people, so I think he was saying you shouldn't go around investigating people like that. At this, the man cried out. There was a general uproar. The crowd dispersed, and Bukhari sat alone in his house. Ibn Yusuf al-Farabi said, I heard Bukhari say, right, I'm pretty sure that's Bukhari, right, Muhammad? Yep. As for the actions of servants, they are created. Ali ibn Abdullah narrated to us, Surely Allah makes every maker and his making, and I heard, or whatever, the actions of servants are created, right, meaning the recitation and all that. And this is in his book, Al-Bukhari. Their motions, harakat, voices, earning, writing, are created. As for the Quran that is declared, established in the volumes, inscribed, written, contained in the hearts, that is Allah's speech, uncreated, right? And Salafis often misunderstand this statement. First of all, this same statement is I believe it's in the Creed of Bayhaqi, right? He's an Ashari, right? So the Asharis don't deny this, and it's also in one of Ghazali's books, right? So the Salafis always want to act like, yeah, see, look, he's saying the Quran is in the books, you know what I mean? But he's saying, it's kind of a confusing statement, but he's saying that basically the Quran, hold on, let me try to explain it better, 1 sec. And so see, this statement says, as for the containers, who doubts that they are created, right? So the container is created, the book is created, but when you record the Quran, it's still, the Quran is uncreated. It's really hard, it's not a clear way to describe it. But the point is that this doesn't agree with the Hanbalis, okay? They didn't agree with this. But the Asharis did. That's why, even look, it's in Bayhaqi in his book. And it's also in Al-Ghazali, and I think it's also in Jawaini, right? But the Hanbalis of this time didn't like Bukhari, right? It is said so-and-so's recitation is excellent, right? And this is in his book, Bukhari's book. So-and-so's recitation is bad, right? It is not said his Quran is excellent or his Quran is bad, and to the servants is the recitation attributed, right? So he's not saying, so if somebody's recitation is not the Quran itself, right? He may be trying to recite the Quran, but, if you have a bad recitation, you can't say that his Quran is bad, right? Because we don't believe that the Quran can be bad, right? While the recitation is the act of the servant, and no one can legislate concerning Allah without knowledge. Unlike some claimed when they said that the Quran is one without our pronouncing it, and that our pronouncing it is the one thing together with it, that declamation is itself the thing declaimed, and recitation is itself the thing recited. Such a one must be told declamation is the act of the reciter, the deed of the one declaiming it. I saw Bukhari in the funeral of Marwan, and at which time Al-Duhli, that was the guy who didn't like him, was asking about the names, or I think it was the guy who didn't like him, yeah, names about the narrators, right, because he was good with hadith, and he was going through them like an arrow. Not a month passed by after that, but Al-Duhli told us, whoever goes to his gathering, meaning Bukhari's gathering, let him not come to ours, right? They wrote to us from Baghdad that he spoke about pronunciation, and we ordered him to stop, which he did not. Therefore, do not go near him. It has been related from Bukhari that he had said, my pronunciation of the Quran is created, while Al-Duhli had said, whoever claims that his pronunciation of the Quran is an innovator whose company must be shunned, and whoever claims that the Quran is created has committed disbelief. And Allah knows best. Ahmad ibn Hanbal, namely, to forbid from entering this subject. He did not mean to contradict Bukhari. If he did mean to contradict him. It's claimed that the pronunciation which comes out of his own created lip is pre-eternal, right? Like, that is, do you really think the the pronunciation that comes out of your mouth is pre-eternal? No, right? That would be an enormity. One would like to believe that he meant the other than that, and that both he and Ahmed and other imams only meant to prohibit people from entering into problems of kalam. For us, Bukhari's words are to be understood as a permission to mention kalam if needed, right? Because that book is kalam. I don't know why Salafis don't know what kalam is. But that book, Khalq al-Ibad, is full of its arguments. It's not just hadith, right? That's what the opposite would be. since the use of kalam out of necessity is an obligation, while keeping silent about kalam and other than necessity is a sunnah. Right, and I think the source he uses this position is rated by Ibn Subki's. Right, Malik ibn Yanis used to say, "I detest talking about religion as the people of our country." Detest, prohibit in the sense of Jahm's doctrine, qadr and the like. I do not like to speak except about what relates to practice. Right, that's important. As for the talk about religion, I prefer to keep silent about it. And, Salafis like to talk a lot about things outside of practice. So they always pretend to follow the Salaf, but they love to talk about these, the hadiths that are controversial. Understand this well and leave the rantings of historians and ignore once and for all the distortions of the misguided who thinks... Let me try to find what's important here. Alright, yeah, this part is pretty important. He has made this meaning explicit in another sound narration reported from him. I heard Muslim, right? This is Sahih Muslim, the one who wrote that book. He recounted the narration in which of the following: a man stood before Bukhari and asked him about the pronunciation of Quran, and he replied, "Our actions are created, and our pronunciation is part of our actions." The story also mentioned that the people at the time differed concerning Bukhari, some saying that he had said, "My pronunciation of Quran is created," others denying it. I say, the only ones to blame are those who indulge in discourse concerning the Quran. And in conclusion, we repeat that what we said in the biography of Al-Karabisi, Ahmad ibn Hanbal and others, right, they forbade talking about. I don't want to make it too long. This is just to prove, right, from Subki, right, he's a Ashari. He says, the Quran itself is really written in the volumes, right, just like what Bukhari said. Preserved in the hearts of the believers, read and recited in reality with the tongues of the reciters among the Muslims, just as Allah is really and not metaphorically worshipped in our mosques, known in our hearts and mentioned with our tongues. This is clear with Allah's grace and thanks to Him. Whoever deviates from this path is isolationist. Right? Of note is Ibn Subki's sharp contradiction of the image given by Ibn Abi Ya'la of Imam Ahmad. Right? I think he said that they believed something else. And Ibn Subki twofold denial. First, that Imam Ahmad ever considered the doctrine that pronunciation is created is disbelief. Ad-Dahabi position, on the other hand, is described both views to Imam Ahmad for whatever reason, right? That's unusual. At the same time, he admits in somewhat circuitous fashion the difference between pronunciation and its content, recitation and its content, and the right. So this might be hard to understand, but the content being recited is eternal, but the recitation is not, right? So that's the whole point. That if you haven't understood what I meant, right? And the contingent nature of pronunciation, movement, and all that utterance, although loath to admit, frankly, that they are created, right? And I think that's coming from Ad-Dahabi, right? The only possible exception is in Dahabi's notice on Al-Ashari's companion of the Shafi'i scholar, Al-Karabisi. Al-Karabisi heard that Imam Ahmad had declared the statement innovation, right? And let's go down here. Dahabi commented, "There's no doubt that what Al-Karabisi innovated and explained in the question of pronunciation is the truth." So it sounds like he agrees with Al-Karabisi. But Imam Ahmad refused it in order to preclude the, right? Because Ahmad didn't like to go into things. He didn't believe in theological rhetoric. He didn't like to talk about stuff. Salafis love to talk about stuff, so maybe they don't really follow him. Right? Ad-Dahabi considers that at the root of the disagreement